Okay, my next question for you is, you talked about procrastination and the procrastination dilemma, and how a lot of procrastination stems from fears, and also from an identity issue as far as what might happen if the conscious creative thinker were to achieve something actually great.
Right.
Could you elaborate on that even more, and also discuss different forms of procrastination?
I got you.
Yeah.
I got you. So again, right, chapter 2 of the book is called How to Overcome Procrastination. And the central theme there, the central idea, is that people procrastinate out of fear. Generally speaking, a fear of failure and a fear of success. So sometimes, especially with creative tasks, you think doing something like writing a book, making a screenplay, starting a career as a musician, etc., that requires a lot of exposure, and that requires people to embrace their vulnerability. So people can feel that if they don't succeed or they don't accomplish what they set out to do, somehow that'll reflect bad on them, and they'll feel embarrassed, or they'll feel that they'll lose their social standing. So a lot of times we confuse our accomplishments with our sense of identity, and when we make that false association, we procrastinate as a way of avoiding that fear. Right? So procrastination begins when you confuse what you're able to accomplish with what your value is as a human being. That's the general point of the chapter. But towards the end of the chapter, in the conclusion, I mentioned that procrastination in other respects can stem from what I call a resistance to authority, what psychologists refer to as the need for autonomy. Autonomy is a synonym for freedom or self-control, or also resistance to authority. So in the same way, if you tell a child, do your homework, come home at a certain time, don't hang out with this person, sometimes they'll do it just as a way of them saying, you know, I'm my own person and I can do what I want. Generally speaking, you tell someone what to do and they feel compelled and coerced, they'll procrastinate, or they'll do the opposite as their way of exerting their freedom, as a way of saying, you can't make me. All right, another example is you tell someone, wash the dishes. If they have to do it, they'll do it haphazardly. They might leave some of the dishes dirty. You know what I mean? They'll do the task in an unsatisfactory way, as a way of exerting their own independence. Or another example might be, you know, paying a traffic ticket, paying a bill. You'll procrastinate on it because you don't want to feel like someone else controls your life. Resistance to authority and the need for autonomy is procrastination as it results to external goals that other people put upon us. Fear of failure, fear of success is a procrastination as it relates to internal goals that have to do with our own creativity or our own exposure. So as human beings, we're very funny. We're very interested in that. When we have a task we set for ourselves, we withdraw and we get scared. Whereas when other people tell us what to do, we become righteous and we have this sense of indignation. It's like on both sides, human nature is kind of like contradictory or hypocritical in that way. So remember, when you procrastinate, if it's a goal that you're setting for yourself, it probably has to do with fear. Your fear of exposure, your fear of failure, your fear of success. Because you can be afraid that if you're successful, that'll bring on additional challenges that'll cause you to be a failure in the future. So for instance, I can put out a book, I can write a book, I've already done that. But can I make a book sell? That's a bigger challenge. That requires a whole different skill set than what authorship or what writing revolves around. Now, in addition to that, in addition to internal goals which require exposure, there are external goals that people place upon you, things that you're forced and compelled to do. So unless you take ownership of them, unless you turn a I have to, I should, or I must, which is external, into a I want to, I choose, or I decide, until you learn to take ownership and initiative of goals that don't necessarily originate from yourself, you'll always procrastinate or do those things haphazardly. And it's important to make that delineation or make that differentiation between the two types of goals and where they stem from. Is that clear? Does that answer it?
Yeah, definitely.
Perfect.